COEN. Matt is the principal researcher and owner of Goshen Education Consulting. He is also the president of the Evaluation Association of St. Louis. So Matt really approached COEN last year to participate in this speaker exchange that he's really leading with the Midwest AA affiliates. And so the idea, which probably Matt can speak to better, is really that, local speakers from each affiliate will really kind of switch places and present at each other's kind of local events. So really with the idea of bringing in new content and ideas to different affiliates. So really excited to have Matt joining us from St. Louis, and we will be having our very own Kelsey Price, who will be presenting on behalf of COEN at the Evaluation Association of St. Louis. So with this, really want to give a warm welcome to Matt and to any of our colleagues from the Evaluation Association of St. Louis who might be joining us today. But Matt will be leading us through an interactive workshop on launching your own evaluation firm. So welcome, Matt, and I will turn things over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love being with you guys today. As Anna announced, I am the president of EASL, the Evaluation Association of St. Louis. And originally it was supposed to be St. Louis Evaluation Association, which sounds logical, except we didn't like the acronym SLEA. And I said, well, I'm not going to join a SLEA. There's no SLEA. I said, how about EASL? And everybody said, oh, that's cute. So we went with cute over, sleazy. So that's who we are. I just put up a slide, and you know what? I'm going to start I know everybody has the same thing I do. I just had the polls up, and I can't find them again. I'm going to launch a poll while I am chatting with you. So, Matt Feldmann, I'm with Goshen Education Consulting. I started this firm back September 18th, 2009. So, and it was just like one of those things where I was working for a university. I was working for Blackburn College, and I was the director of institutional research, which is just a fancy way of saying like the data guy for the president and vice presidents. And I went to one of these breakfasts, that you're invited to from time to time, and I was like, yeah, free food, I'm there. And I met a superintendent with the provost, and they said, hey, can you help out with this evaluation thing? And I had been doing that in my doctorate program as a grad assistant. And I said, well, sure, I need windows in my house. And one thing led to another. And so I found myself doing a side job that led to another side job. And then 5 contracts later, I found myself saying, how am I supposed to do all of this? And so I decided to start, well, actually, honestly, I didn't want to start a firm. I was converted by market demand. I was originally going to create a research institute at a university. I had changed universities. I was at a different institution at the time. And they just didn't know what to do with me. And I said, if they don't know what to do with me now, what's it going to be like when I need them? So I said, I guess I'll go figure out how to do this whole consulting thing. And, advanced 10 years. It was actually January 2011, so 10 years ago to this month, that I went 100% solo. And so here I am. I immediately got involved with the American Evaluation Association, and I went immediately to the Independent Consulting TIG, the Topical Interest Group. So in my experience with EASL, not everybody knows all these acronyms. So I'm going to use some acronyms, and you should be aware. I'm going to say the word TIG, that's TIG, or Topical Interest Group. And there's a lot of them, and you should know about them. And I'm going to talk a lot about AEA's ICTIG, and that is the Independent Consulting Topical Interest Group, or ICTIG, ICTIG. We'll say that a lot. I'll also say AEA a lot. So American Evaluation Association, you may know that. I kind of expect a lot of people do, but I'm actually no, just because of our local affiliates. Not everybody associates with anything aside from their local affiliate. So anyhow, going on, I got immediately involved with AEA and the ICTIG, and I said, count me in, I want a part of it. And I started just attending everything, and it was fantastic. And the more I've learned, the more I've contributed, the more I've put back into my own practice. And so a couple years ago, Gail Barrington, who was the kind of like the queen of all independent consulting, she's the one who started all these classes that I do now. She asked me to help out, and I said, no way, I'd love to do it, but I want to bring along my friend Laura Keene. So Laura was I was the chair of the TIG at the time, and she was the I guess, the chair-elect or the incoming chair or whatever you call it. So I was the chair in 2015, and she was going to be the chair in 2016. I think my math is right. Or no, I was the chair in 2016, and she was going to be the chair in 2017. And so we've been doing it ever since. And so we started these workshops off as pre-conference workshops, and we do both the intro, and this is like the first maybe hour, hour and a half of the intro piece today. Actually, I think we have 2 hours. So yeah, we have about 2 hours today of the intro to consulting pre-conference workshop. It's the same material. And we also do the intermediate. And well, since COVID, we haven't done it. We didn't do it this last year as a pre-conference workshop. They did some other workshops, but we weren't invited. I've also done the e-study for the Summer Evaluation Institute. And I've also, we do a lot of these exchanges. These have been fantastic. By the way, EASL has like grown in numbers because we've been doing all these speaker exchanges. And so when Kelsey comes to speak to us, people love that stuff. People have joined our associate. We didn't ever anticipate that. But we had people joining EASL just so that they could hear about all these different sessions. So I'm saying double down on this stuff, Anna. This is great. You're gonna love it. But anyway, I've been doing the speaker exchanges, and then I did the e-study for AEA last May, and because that was kind of weird, it was like we didn't know what to do with Zoom yet. It was like April, May, we were all figuring things out, and we were figuring out how much we loved Zoom, but they were using that old platform where you couldn't communicate, they couldn't see anybody's face, and we couldn't even figure out how to chat with each other. I said, well, let's chat. And that became the basis for the independent consulting chats, or the IC topic chats that we have every Thursday at 10 a.m. Mountain. So anyhow, that is a little bit of background on me and what we do. And at some point, I will share a link that if you want to go see those sessions, and I'll give you some more ideas on what we're doing. But I'm going to end this polling. Nobody's lonely. Everybody actually is here for a good reason. Look at this. Most people are in an idea stage. So they're at that second level. Okay, there's Gail. There's the ICTIG. But we've got a good 3 people who are experienced. If I have like a massive stroke and I can't continue on, you guys are in charge, okay? You agree to that? Everybody good with that? All right, newly solo, you guys are my people, my 3, 4s, and 5s. You're the ones who are like actively doing something about this. And I want you guys to talk. I want you to post questions. I want you to think. I want you to get actively involved. Feel free to follow up with me afterwards. I do my best to follow up. It's been lots going on. My firm went from when I started doing these sessions from 1 person, that was me, to as of yesterday, 7 people. So we're growing quickly right now. A lot going on in my firm. All right, I forgot to share. I've been looking at them thinking you guys saw them. There you go. So you can see there's a lot of idea stage, but we also have people in the 3, 4s, and 5s there. And then 3 people who are experienced. Stop sharing those results. Next time I forget, somebody yell at me, okay? All right, so let's go on. So the independent consulting TIG, I think I heard Lynn talking about how to get involved and connect. If you want to get involved and connect with people who are independent consultants, there's no better place to do it through the ICTIG, or the Independent Consulting Topical Interest Group. If you're a member of AEA, which I suggest you be, there is this is a group of people that frequently communicate through the listserv. I think they call it an e-group or something like that. So that you post questions. There are, I'm trying to think of mastermind groups. So they match you with other people, about 3 to 5 different people who are at your same level. Like if you're brand new, they'll match you with people who are brand new to ask questions. I'm experienced, so I'm with people who have firms of sizes 2 to 5 people. Actually, I think one of these gals, she might have 15 people. She's doing great. But in my group, so they match you with those. There's just different events, and then at this conference we have gatherings and ways to get together, and that we also have our own slate of sessions that we do. Anyhow, I want to give you a couple more resources as we're talking about this. Today, we're going to talk about this chapter 2 done by, no, the chapter 3 done by Amy Gurmuth, Succeeding as an Independent Evaluation Consultant, and requisite skills and attributes. I think it was a good primer chapter, or primer, say, primer chapter for us to talk about today, or for you to think about this stuff. I'm not going to touch a lot on her topics, but it's good to read and think about these things. Amy's a very successful consultant in North Carolina, and she's been doing this for about 15 or 20 years. And she was also one of our co-editors. I also highlighted my chapter, of course, but I also want to point out chapter 2. That was actually the genesis for this entire volume. It was the survey that we did in 2015. We call it the decennial survey, but somehow we only seem to do it every 12 years. Don't ask me. But the decennial survey, and it asked a lot of questions. We're going to touch on some of this today about fees. Everybody wants to talk about fees. They want to know what other people are charging on an hourly rate, how much people are making revenue. Hopefully we'll set your mind at ease, particularly if you're in those earlier stages of getting started. Let's see here. But also within here, there's, if anybody knows Stephanie Evergreen, she wrote this chapter with Nina Sabari, Branding for the Independent Consultant. Everybody loves, well, everybody knows Stephanie Evergreen, but anybody who meets Nina loves her equally as well. She's fantastic. If you're thinking about starting a consulting practice after as a second career, consulting after 50, that was written by Gail Barrington, and I suggested earlier, she is like the person that had started this whole thing up. And also, I think this is a great chapter 10. If anybody here is interested in international evaluation, read this chapter, talk to me about it, send me a note, because the authors are going to be on the IC topic chat next week, not this week, but next week, the 21st. And they're going to be discussing this chapter. So it's about an hour session that we do. Completely free, by the way. You don't have to be a member of anything. We don't care. Just show up if you're interested. That's the way we work. We roll like that. So today, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to learn? Why did you show up? Not just to hear me talk about things that I wrote about in groups. We're going to talk about some consultant attributes. We'll talk about Moxie. We're going to look at that independent consultant survey that we did in 2015, and we'll focus on how the independent consultants survey, the newer independent consultants responded. Just as a quick, if everybody could put themselves on mute, and if you want to chat, we can definitely do that. Just make sure you might want to take off your mute. But yeah, everybody put yourself on mute just until you need to speak so you don't have any background noise. I was getting a little background noise. I'm going to talk to you guys about identifying a niche. And because we've got 2 hours, we'll definitely have time to talk about networking and marketing. And we don't always get to that when I have the shorter sessions of about 60 to 90 minutes, but we have 2 hours. Don't worry. I'll give you guys potty breaks. Don't worry. There'll be plenty of time for that. And plus, we'll also have time to look at some of those worksheets. If you haven't done it already, there's worksheets that look like, how far down is it? Looks like this. And I think I've got a link for you somewhere. The link was sent out. I believe this is the right link. If it's not, no. And maybe Anna, if that's the wrong link, you can post it. We won't need that handout right away. I'm just giving it to you now so you can look at it while you're hearing me chat about other things. Okay. The consultant landscape. So what are consultants? I guess that's the big question, right? Why do we do this? Crazy manifestations must we go through to want to do something so idiotic and we go off and try and start our own businesses? Well, Oxford Dictionary talks about consultant as someone who's engaged in the business of giving expert advice to people working in a specific field. We like to think that we sell knowledge, skills, and expertise in our world, so as evaluators, right? We are entrepreneurs and small business people. Our TIG, the IC TIG, has ranged in size from about 578 people in the earlier years, almost 20 years ago, to about 1,509 today. Well, no, not today. I guess we're a little under that. We're probably around about 1,000, but it's 1,000. I mean, that's a lot of people. And there is at least 250 to 300 people who are actively involved. There's a lot of what I call lurkers. They're people who think about going into independent consulting and they join it because you can join up to 5 TIGs when you're an AEA member. And I'm not judging those people because I was one for like 2 years. So it's totally understandable if you want to do that. Just kind of like pay attention to things but never engage. I did that for 2 years. So definitely do that. But we have probably a good 300 to 400 people at any point in time who are like lurking. And then there are people who have definitely got independent consulting practices, but they're not active. They just have it. They care to get the resources, but they generally don't do much about it. But there's at least 200 to 300 people at any one point in time who will actively engage with things. And it's a really wonderful TIG that way. When we go to the conferences, we don't necessarily have the most presentations, but we have the largest presence. And when at our meetings, we have a lot of active engagement. It's a really great group. If you go to the American Evaluation Association meeting, I believe they're getting ready to put out the call for proposals. It will be next October or November. It's always October and November. It will be in Washington, D.C. And then make sure you go to the business meeting and make sure you go to the Meet the Pros. That's what it's called. And it's a speed networking, geeking thing. And that is like, that'll make your entire conference if you're into independent consulting. Love this quote. This is in Amy's chapter. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you've heard the term Ikigai. I-K-I-G-A-I. It's not in the presentation. I just started reading this book, but this is what we're talking about here. Ikigai. Anybody? All right, well, I'll find something when we're on break so you can hear about it. It's basically this whole idea, and I'm going to get into some different ideas very similar to that soon. It's this idea that you should do the things that you love, the thing that you're good at, the things where you can get compensated fairly and you can make money and you're contributing back to the world. And when you can find that, you can be this enthusiastic person who's like the best 75-hour work week you'll ever work. It's a joke, right? Well, you don't necessarily have to work 75 hours. I think I have a successful consulting firm. I don't work that many hours, but oftentimes I want to just because I'm having such a good time. And that's the idea. When you can put all the everything in a row, right? Everything comes together. You're having a great time and you want to go to work. And that's where you want to be. So why do people consult? Well, as Amy put in there, there's a lot of money in it. You have the opportunity to make more than you probably will for your privately. I mean, if you have not necessarily. I mean, some people don't want to make a lot of money. They just want to have a little bit of a side job. They want it to be something extra. But you don't have to share your fees with other people if it's your consulting firm. That was kind of what led me to start my own firm, because I was going to have to put all that revenue is going to go to a university and then I'm going to have to ask for it back. And I thought, these people don't even care about me. Why am I doing this? So to me, I thought, actually, I had generated contracts that were going to give me in 2011 about $100,000 a year in fees. And I was writing this memo and I was really mad, like, why don't you guys respond to me? I'm going to generate over $100,000 for you guys next year. If you don't go along with this, you're not going to get it. And I thought, they don't care enough to respond to my other questions about this when I've told them that there's an opportunity on the table. So I realized I'll just keep that and I'll figure out how to do a consulting firm. And that's why I did it. So consulting can be lucrative. These are just some numbers that are thrown out there about the US market and the global market. So there's a lot out there. This is obviously not evaluation. Wouldn't it be great if we could say we had 59 billion in evaluation consulting? We're not quite there yet. We're working on it though. So these couple slides are to basically say, you guys have a great job anyway. you have great skills. I usually have people kind of guess where we are. We have great skills as evaluators. We're not data scientists necessarily, we're not data engineers, but we're in that same field. And the fact that we've learned how to do what we do, and we're in the evaluation world, we're in demand. There is opportunities out there for us. So what I'm trying to say here is, in the top jobs in America, we kind of share a lot of similarities with the number 1 and the number 3. And the number 2 is like programmer or something like that. You know, the number 2, according to US News Best Jobs, I probably need to update this slide, but I bet it's still up there. Statistician. We're not, some of us are statisticians. Some people call me one. I'm not sure I am one. But we have some fantastic skills. So just know that when we're talking about independent consulting, if you want to go do this, you have a fallback plan because you've got mad skills, right? So just know that. Just realize this whole conversation, put yourself at ease and go, all right, I figured out a lot of things that put me in demand. If I go independent consulting and I fall on my face, I don't think you're going to if you do the things I tell you to do. But if you think there's a chance you're going to fall on your face, just know you can probably go find a job. And that was exactly the conversation I had with my wife back in 2010 when we were considering this. I said, I've got some contracts lined up. I can tell you what 2011 is going to look like. 2012 will be a little bit tight. 2013, I don't know, probably be fine, but give me a chance. And you know, I'm glad we did it. All right, let's talk about new consultants. These are the people. A lot of you guys are thinking you would join this group. So we did this survey of all independent consultants in the TIG, from the American Evaluation Association. So I think we put out this survey to about 800 people who allowed us, had the contact information on file. And then we broke that down to the responses. We had about 200. The numbers on this are, the specific numbers are in a later slide. I'm going to guess a little bit, but about 200 or 300 overall responses. But we looked at just those 17 people who were full-time. So they were, they left their jobs. They weren't doing this on the side. They were full-time, and they were within their first 5 years of independent consulting practice. So 0 to 4 years in practice. And they were focused on their practice full-time. I said that already, and they had no employees. And so who were they? They were 82% women. They were 45% PhDs. Where's that one? Come on, you can do it. There it is. And they were about 33 to 55 years old. So I always said, if we were to put out and we were going to create a made-for-TV movie, who would we get to star in that role? It would be Mayim Bialik. You guys know her from The Big Bang Theory, probably, or Blossom. Anyway, so she fits this description exactly. Wouldn't she be great in ICTIG? Wouldn't she be a great independent consultant? I don't know what the plot line would be. You guys have to help me figure that one out. Feel free to give me a plot line in chat if you're bored. All right. But, oh wait, where did I get this? Oh no, here's some quotes. Why do we consult? We like the independence, right? We decided it was time for me to work for myself rather than someone else. The flexibility. This is why I loved it. I can't do this now, but usually I like to tell a story about my daughter's elementary school is just a block and a half away. And at lunch, I would go and eat lunch with her every week on Tuesdays. I had the flexibility to do that. I own my own business. Nobody cares. I mean, it's a little tougher now. But anyway, I love that flexibility. And I already talked about the money. I felt like I was being ripped off by my previous employer. Now I make 1.5 times my old salary. When I was thinking about this, one of my colleagues said she made 3 times her salary every year since she left. And I wouldn't count on that. But I personally have made minimally the salary I had at my old job every year. I had a couple of tight years. They were actually tight when I first started taking on employees. Let's see. But what do you guys worry about? These are what the people from the survey said. I'm always concerned that my current projects are the last I will ever have. Something always pops up. It's true. You have to kind of trust the process. Things do pop up. This is what often happens. You have too much work, not enough balance. I can never take a vacation because there's no one truly there to cover for me. I can't take on more work because I'm just a one-person shop, but I don't have enough billing to hire somebody. Marketing and soft skills. A lot of people worry about, how do I go out and talk to people? How do I do that sales things? Oh, Erica said, how about resilience? I don't have to depend on someone else for my job. Instead, I have lots of jobs. Feel free to expand on that a little bit, Erica. We'll cover some of that. I think we're going to talk about Moxie in just a second, which I think is another word for resilience. Oh, I'm supposed to set this up. What do people make? Okay, total revenue. This is covering all your expenses. Those people in their first years, we looked at those 17 people. They said, and I just asked the question. I can't even believe they answered it. Not everybody answers this question, by the way. I said, how much did you make last year? Total revenue, just revenue. And so the median was about 75,000. And that's from, I threw out the people that said zero, because I'm not really sure the story on that one. If they were in business, they were probably generating something. But 40,000 to 97,000 is that 25th to 75th percentile. So if you're talking to your partner, your spouse, whomever, your dog, about whether you should do this, this is what other people said happened. They went out and per year they were able to generate between 40 and 97,000 with a median of about $75,000. So here's what happened after the fact. After the first 4 years, things get a little bit better. People, and again, these are people who don't have employees and they don't have another job. This is like fully focused on their practice. After 5 to 9 years, they were at about 123,000. It goes up from there at 10 to 14 years. Hey, I just hit 10 years, 142,000. And then after 20 years, it goes down. Does anybody want to make a guess in the chat box why it goes down when you're 20 plus years? Are you just out of touch? Feel free to throw something into the chat box. You get tired, says Doug or Douglas. I know somebody's typing it right now. Everybody gets this one. In my partial retirement, part-time, too far removed from practical experience in the industry, I do know of a colleague who did grow out of touch. And that's actually something that really did happen. He had all of his contracts with a series of people that he worked with, and they got older, and then they stopped doing as many projects, and he didn't stay in touch with the other ones. But typically, that's not what happens. Typically, what happens is people just grow. They just grow more picky about who they want to work with. They're really good at their jobs. They love what they're doing, and they don't need. They say, I don't need to do all that other work and work with those clients I don't want to work with anymore. I just want to work with these clients. So the revenue goes down because they don't need to do all that extra work. So that's typically what happens, at least in my descriptions from other people. So, all right, do I have what it takes? We're going to look at this handout. I'm going to talk you through it for the next about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to give you guys a chance to read through it. You can complete it, you can print it out and do it on your own. I don't have it set up so that it's like a web form. I should do that. That makes sense, wouldn't it? Aaron just wrote, sorry, did you mention an hourly rate? I know some RFPs asked for hourly rates. We're going to talk about fees. We did talk about fees, didn't we? The hourly rates, it's in the article. I'll share it with you. Make sure I do that at the end. But the median hourly rate, I can tell you this because it's in the article. The median hourly rate for people all across the United States is, median is $100 an hour. The average is $125 an hour. Obviously, that's affected by higher rates that kind of pull the average up. So your basis for your central tendency, you probably want to go towards 100. There's a problem with that number. You shouldn't use that number just because I told it to you. You really should go through the calculation. Also, make sure somebody could remind me to share a video. I have a video that we put out on the IC topic chats on how to calculate your rate. And there's we also have some spreadsheets and things for you to think through. The basic calculation on that, Aaron, is you're going to calculate all your expenses. What does it cost to be a consultant, and how many hours you can actually work on that? And you're going to use those, you're going to do that math, and then you're going to realize what your hourly rate is. If you can't work 2,000 hours fully billable and do billing and marketing and spend lots of time with COEN, because you need to spend time with your local affiliate, those aren't billing times. So you can only work about 40 to 60% of your time actually on billable time. So that's how you figure out your rate. But you'll find the 25th to 75th percentile is between 75 and 100, 150, $160 an hour. That's about what you're looking at. But I'm telling you right now, don't go bill just because Matt Feldmann said it and he's an expert. Read the article and go through the process, because at some point somebody says, why is your rate $125? You need to be able to say, my billing rate is $125 because of all these things. And that's what we explain how to do in that video. All right, I'm going to pull up the video, the worksheet, and let's take a look at that. All right, do I have what it takes? Maybe I'll get rid of this little ribbon. No, let's not customize it. Let's close it. There we go. All right, so this handout has about 3 pages, and it's kind of a self-reflection. I'm going to walk you through it until about 11:45 and give you guys about 10 minutes. Give my vocal cords a chance to break. But what kind of personal characteristics do you have? Clearly, a lot of the yeses and the nos are self-explanatory. If you feel like if you're saying yes frequently, that's kind of an indicator that those are things that independent consultants should be able to do. And also know that, you know, this is an indicator to you, are you going to be comfortable doing these things? Do I have a clearly defined personal, research, and business ethics? You should be thinking about your ethics. You should be thinking about AEA's ethics. Am I learning what I need to know right now? Am I aware that my own cultural lens can lead to misunderstanding? So those are those things. Can I handle periods of isolation and periods without lots of clients contact and data collection? Be willing to bet. My experience with evaluators, most people are like, oh yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'm not great with that. Multitasking. Here's a big thing that we do. We in life, as white collar professionals, do a lot of multitasking, but you do a lot more of it now, because you're going to have to learn how to do things you didn't have to expect to do, like marketing or in QuickBooks, and talk to a lawyer about setting up contracts and things like that. And that's part of that here. Can I respond quickly when my client or field realities change? Am I able to do these things that just pop up? I mean, we talk about peaks and valleys. Well, you need to work with the peaks and the valleys. Sometimes you're going to work longer hours than you expect to. Is your family understanding when that needs to happen? You shouldn't go too far. You shouldn't press too hard against your family all the time. But on times when, occasionally when you need to work a Tuesday night and you didn't expect to, are they going to be okay with that? Do I have those skills? Can I improve my consulting skills? All right, so I'm just talking these through. I'm going to leave this here. It's 11:45 my time, so I guess it's 10:45 your time. I'm going to give everybody about 10 minutes to take a break and read through this. And in the meantime, I'll work some. I'm going to probably get up and walk around for a second, but I'll also do some questions and answers through the chat. See if I can find some links for you. Okay. I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'm going to turn off my video, and we will come back in 10 minutes, right at 10:55. But feel free to ask questions and put things in the chat. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I've got 10:55. Hi, Anna, she's back. All right. Lily never went away. She stayed with us. Okay, so does anybody have any questions? Anybody want to post any thoughts in the chat? While we're doing that, I'll tell you some of my thoughts on all this. As thoughts occur to you, feel free to put things in the chat. I'm going to launch another survey. Poll. They're called polls, aren't they? I call this the Moxie scale.
And Matt, Lily did post a question above in regard to, what particular consulting skills we should be considering when thinking about strengths and weaknesses.
I'm sorry, so you actually asked some questions before the session, is that what you're saying?
No, just above in the chat.
Oh.
She said, can you provide some clarity in what specific skills are in mind?
Okay. No, I think maybe, I didn't see that one. Okay, let's see. Can you provide some clarity on what specific skills you have in mind? Oh, yeah, up at 10:45. I think the key things, some of these are vague. Yeah, they are. And I think the reality is a lot of what you're going to do is a little bit vague. Your specifics come down to, some of the hardcore stuff is like, how do you just the wherewithal to set things up, like how to work, how to reach out and find clients, how to, oops, I froze. Take my video back off. Let's try that again. I'm back. But some of these skills are just the self-confidence to understand how to go through some of these bigger pieces. And I don't think we're going to go into how do you set up where do you go to get insurance? Where do you go to, how do you do your finances? And actually a lot of these are on the videos on the YouTube channel that's associated with my firm. And we have 20, we checked this morning, 24 or 25 videos that we've done over all these, over about the last 7 months. So those are places where you can learn more about all the specifics. But these are the broad personal characteristics that are associated with setting this thing up. At the end of the day, a consultant sells their experience for money, right? So how do we make that work? You identify clients, however you do it. They're excited about your opportunity to work with them. You provide a service to them and they pay you. And everybody has a different kind of format for how that works. But there's typically contracts involved. There's an evaluation plan. We all should know how to write evaluation plans or know where to find out more about evaluation plans. We set up a contract, we invoice, we get paid, we know where the money comes from, we know where to put it, we know how to pay ourselves. And when we don't know, we know how to find an accountant to help us out, we know how to find a lawyer to set up our contract. So those are like the hard skills, but the reality is it's all soft skills of figuring out how to do that and just having confidence in your ability to figure these things out, how to identify who those clients are, identify the opportunities that they may have in whatever practice they're in, and how you can support them in a way that will be beneficial to them and that they want to pay you for. Other thoughts on the Moxie scale? So I'm going to end the polling, and I'm going to share the results. And remember to do that today. I have a lot to learn, but I feel somewhat confident. That's kind of our average. I almost always hit 4 on every survey like this because I never feel like I am an expert. I've done quite a bit out there. I'm the president of the Private Evaluation Association. I've been the chair of the TIG and all these things. And even when people ask me, are you an evaluation expert? I guess perhaps to my clients, I'll say yes, but to my colleagues in evaluate, I'll just say I'm more than a novice. Maybe I'm advanced at best, but an expert, I'm always careful to say that. Stop sharing those results. Go back to our slides. In the break, by the way, I did post a couple more things for you. I posted the slides and the folder and the video on how to set your fees. So I said those numbers between 75 and 125, maybe 75 and 150 are the 25th and 75th percentiles, where the median is about $100 an hour. Those numbers are based on people who actually did through, or we suggest people do this calculation, and this shows you how to do that. Okay. So the other question we get a lot is, what is Moxie? And Moxie is, in fact, what we say, having Moxie means having enough cleverness or skill, according to Urban Dictionary, creativity, fortitude, to solve or at least get out of a difficult and personally, a tough situation. But having the ability, just like the confidence in yourself, to do this. And that's really what I call this idea. You need to just kind of have confidence that you can make it work. Or, it's actually, originally it was a carbonated beverage that was among the first mass-produced soft drinks in the United States. It was popular in New England, but it actually was purchased by the Coca-Cola company. So I've done the same session for the Greater Boston Evaluation Network and for the Atlanta Area Evaluation Association. So I thought that was a weird connection because it was where Moxie is popular and where it's now owned. So, all right, so client services and competitive edge. How many people have read the book Good to Great? Feel free to give me a thumbs up or a wave or some sort of put something in the chat box. So Good to Great is this book by, Debbie gives me a thumbs up. Thanks, Debbie. Good to Great was this book. It's 20 years old now, and it, in some ways, has never aged because it's one of those great books. Can I put it on the shelf here? Usually they do it. It's probably at home. The Good to Great book by Jim Collins is a foundation, and it's actually, here it is. It's right here. Oh, while we're talking about it, I talked about Gail Barrington. She actually literally wrote the book. During the next break, I'll make sure I put, or at the end, I'll make sure I post that for people if they want to see it. But Good to Great is this book by Jim Collins, and it's the #1 bestseller of all business books ever. It's crazy to think. When I got this version of this book, they said 3 million copies sold. It's much higher than that. It's a research-based book. So he was a business researcher. He was at Stanford technically, but he's from Colorado, so he made lots of references to Colorado. Anybody knows better to correct me. It's totally fine. Anyhow, Shannon said she read it. The basic idea is they wanted to know why businesses became great, and what it is. What are some of those characteristics about those companies that became great companies? And so, an example of that was like Walgreens. When they looked at how Walgreens was going on just fine, just like Eckerd's, and they actually did a match comparison. So they did, this is a historical research project, and they looked back and they saw how Eckerd's and Walgreens were just kind of like paralleling each other. They were both doing just great. They're fine, they're doing okay. And then all of a sudden, Eckerd's was just going straight, and Walgreens went straight up, meaning their profits were selling all those metrics of great businesses. And so they looked into it, and they came up with these handful of chapters that you see here, from leadership to about people, thoughts, and actions. And so I'm going to talk mostly about the hedgehog concept today, which we'll get to in a second, but I feel like it's important for you to think about this because as they looked at it, and as people started reading this book, they realized this is not just for like large corporations with 100,000 people or more or whatever. Has broad application, and I spend a lot of time talking about this even with like college classes. I tell my kids about it, just about what they're thinking about doing. But I think it's definitely something that's been important to the way that I think about my own consulting practice. But it's also something that you may want to think about as you're developing just your own perspective on life, but maybe if you're developing your own independent consulting practice as well. The first thing is leadership. So leadership is that concept of, you may think about, there's level 1 through 5. So level 1 is kind of like that terrible boss you had back in high school who just like played favorites, forgot to put up the schedule each week. They were a lousy boss. They were just mean to you for no apparent reason. That would be a level 1 boss. Now, level 2 is somebody who, somewhat competent, maybe not great. You continue up. Level 3, fantastic boss. Level 4, best boss you can imagine, right? Somebody who's supportive, goes out of their way to help you out. But level 5 is kind of like that elite boss. This is somebody who blends both discipline towards a mission. They're selfless. It's not about them. And so the best businesses out there have this level 5 leadership, where there's bosses that are put their mission before themselves. The first two, then what, is a matter of like identifying who should be a part of your practice. And in some ways, who you are. So if you're just a one-person practice, you can think about this from the perspective of, who are you? What should you be doing, right? But as you're hiring people, you want to put who before what you do. So a lot of people will talk about Bill Hewlett and David Packard. They originally produced a line of electronic test and measurement equipment before they got into computers and networking and things like that in the early 20th century. They started hiring really fantastic engineers, and then they decided what they were going to do. And I think about that too with my consulting practice. We certainly want to have a focus on who we're serving, but I don't want to be extremely specific with my people. I want to give my people enough room where they have flexibility to focus. But if I hire the right people, we should have that blend between my mission and their flexibility to do what they want to do. So it's the first. People also think about this as a school bus analogy. You have a school bus, and who are you going to put on the bus to make sure this bus is like full of the right people? But also, who are you going to take off the bus who really don't belong as part of your team? So think about that too. Before you hire somebody, make sure you're absolutely confident you want them on your team. But if there are people on your team and they don't work, they need to be taken off because they're just going to get in the way. If you realize early on somebody's not working out, it's in everybody's best interest, theirs included, for them to be removed from the bus. But also think about where you can put people in the right seats. What's the best teams for people to be working with? Confronting the brutal facts is this next stage. And all these firms did this. Walgreens, when they were confronting the brutal facts, they were actually the original people. They originated the milkshake machine. Remember when drugstores, actually, most of us can't remember this, but we know that drugstores once upon a time had soda counters. Well, that was a big thing. And Walgreens was definitely part of that. Well, they also had a milkshake machine. And so they have, at a certain point in time, said, we should stop having milkshake machines and soda counters because that's really not what we do best. And we should move into the things that we do best. The hedgehog concept is what we're talking about, but basically it's focusing on what you do well and doing and who you should be serving, right? Once you've had this understanding, then you have this culture of discipline of staying and focusing on who your clients are. And then and only then, and this is interesting, because a lot of us want to start with our Facebook marketing and our LinkedIn marketing and things like that. Technology accelerators happen only after you have figured a lot of these other things out. Not a lot of people know who drugs.com are. Drugs.com is a firm back in the 2000s that wanted to go in and just put all these brick and mortar pharmacies out of business. Walgreens decided they were going to take crawl, walk, run method versus just starting from zero and going to running. And they slowly put, I think there's a couple of examples of that. Not everybody can be an Amazon.com and just go from nowhere and then put out all the booksellers, right? Most of the time, it's the people who know what they're doing within an industry that are going to be successful at that. But in our world, when we're talking about technology accelerators, and for me, we're talking about like Tableau, we're talking about getting better at interactive dashboards. Don't start with that. Start with good, solid skill set within program evaluation, and then work up to that. So let's talk about the hedgehog concept. So here we have a hedgehog and a fox. And so the concept in the book is based upon an essay from called The Hedgehog and the Fox from the philosopher Isaiah Berlin. And the big idea here is that the fox knows many things and is kind of a little bit flighty, but the hedgehog knows one big thing. Hedgehogs are kind of like porcupines. They walk across, they walk very determinedly, they know what they want to do, and if they get attacked, they know how to protect themselves. They roll up in a ball, and then after the danger leaves, they get up and they continue walking in a straight direction. They're not very fast, but they're determined in the way that they operate. Now, I described this to my son, and he goes, "No, they're not, Dad. They move really, really fast." And I said, "Oh, wait a second. We're not talking about Sonic the Hedgehog. That one doesn't count. But real hedgehogs, based upon the essay from Isaiah Berlin, are slow, determined creatures." The idea here is that if you understand what you're trying to do with your niche, with who you want to serve, with who your potential clients are, you work in that way in a determined fashion, like a hedgehog versus a fox, where you say, "Oh, I should do a museum evaluation. Oh, I should work with nonprofits. Oh, I should be in healthcare. I should do qualitative. I should do quantitative. I should do everything." And from my perspective, you should focus on what you do well. And that's who you should be focused on and where the people you enjoy working with. So that's where the hedgehog concept is. There's 3 overlapping circles. And I just found out about a 4th circle. And I was talking about this with Ikigai, maybe during a break. I'll find that. I'll send that link out to you guys. This is the book I'm reading. But this Venn diagram identifies 3 things. And this is how you identify who you should be working with. First, start with what do you love? What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? What do you wake up in the morning thinking about, right? Secondly, what are you really good at? What do you, and usually these things are overlapping. You're oftentimes right here in this little area doing things that you love and you're really good at. Frequently, when you get to be a program evaluator, your parents didn't force you to do this, You found your way into program evaluation by accident, like most of us. But third, what drives your economic engines? What are the things, where's the money? Now, I have examples of where this doesn't work out. So if you're not hitting that center of those 3 circles, the center of this Venn diagram, you're probably not sustainable. If you're passionate about something, but you're not good at it, and there's no money in it, that's kind of like the hopeless art student, right? Someone who loves art, they're passionate about it, but they really can't draw. And it's really difficult in that industry, to be successful. And there can be a lot of money, but you may not be at that point. But if you're just up here in this passion piece, you're not sustainable. Even if you're passionate about it and you're really good at it, you haven't found the market down here, you're not going to be sustainable. You're not going to be able to afford to live, right? What if you're passionate about something and there's a lot of money? Well, we don't really talk about that because you're not going to find the opportunities because you're not any good at it, right? So it would be like me going into law. I don't love law, but if I did love law, and I know there's a lot of money in it for where I live in Madison County, there's a lot of personal injury lawyers. It's actually a capital of this stuff around the country. A lot of people move here. It's a lot of lawyers. A lot of Ferraris drive around down here. But I could be passionate about law And I know there's a lot of money in it, but I don't know anything about it. I don't have a law degree. I wouldn't be successful. What if you're really good at something and there's a lot of money in it? So you lost the passion. Those are, back on law, I call those golden handcuffs, corporate lawyers. Apparently there's a lot of corporate lawyers that are very unhappy, according to a book that was covered on, NPR. Not my, this is the name of the book. I'm not making this up. And it was interesting when they interviewed this person because it's called, forgive my language, bullshit jobs. Because there's a lot of people apparently who hate their jobs, and corporate lawyers are at the top of that list. That's because they're really good at it, and there's a lot of money in it, but they hate it because maybe they lost the passion. So anyway, you want to be focused here in the center, doing things that you're passionate about, that you're really good at, and what drives your economic engines. And there's a worksheet we're going to get to in a second. You can spend some time with, where you can think about this. And this is where you start to think, who should I be serving? What should I be doing? Who are my clients? What kind of clients should I be working with? Where are there opportunities? Now, I used to say this, and I think for the most part, this is still true. There's no such thing as a history education evaluator. I think that's actually getting ready to change based upon the events of last week. I'm actually currently writing a grant for a civics education project, and we'll be doing an evaluation on that as well. And so I'm fairly convinced it's going to get funded. I'm not sure if I'll get the funding, but there's going to be a lot of funding out there for civics because people don't understand the democratic process, which I think was at the root of what happened last week. But I used to say there's no such thing as a history education evaluator. There were these teaching American history grants that have all gone away. And if I had specialized in that up until recently, I wouldn't have a job because there's nothing that drives that economic engine. So I do a lot of STEM evaluation, STEM education evaluation work in my work. So that's what drives my economic engines. I'm passionate about evaluation and education. I'm really good at it. We can take a data set and turn it into something that is usable by a client with not a lot of skill in understanding data pretty quickly, and there's money there for it. The fact that a lot of our grants have external evaluation requirements, that gives us a lot of opportunities. So my strategy, I'm going to tell you my strategy, feel free to copy this. This totally works. This is a great marketing idea. Find people who want to write grants, who are looking for evaluators, who have no money. They want to get the money so they can do these things. This isn't all about education, but it certainly works in that. Find those folks, I don't know how you do it, but you find those folks who want to write these grants and then provide them the evaluation plan for free on the condition that they hire you when they get it. You can put together contracts, and there's lots of suggestions I have for how to do that. But put yourself out there, and then when the grants get funded, you have a project. And it's actually the easiest sale you can make because they don't have anything to give you. It's coming from somebody else, and then you're written into a contract, or I'm sorry, you're written into a proposal that becomes a contract that they need to have with you. There's examples where these can go wrong, and I can talk you through this. But for the most part, this is a great strategy. And that's what drives my economic engines. I find people who want to write grants, and they have like no budget for an evaluator, but they will if they get funded, and it's worked out for me. So back on this hedgehog concept. So now you've spent some time thinking about where your passions lie, what you're really good at, and where the money is, right? So you kind of outline this business plan that you want to go after. In my situation, I wanted to focus on Southwestern Illinois educational organizations like Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, our regional institution, school districts, and the evaluation that goes along with their education work. So Collins talks about this flywheel concept, which is kind of complicated. It's a mechanical device in your car, something about rotational energy. As you get it spinning, it spins faster and it keeps going. I have a whole definition in front of me here. I can read it to you. It's kind of boring. It's from Wikipedia. I understand Ferris wheels. Now, if you've ever been to Chicago, and you've ever been on Navy Pier, you see this big Ferris wheel, and this is visualize that. Think about this flywheel that you have here in front of you. Think of it like a Ferris wheel. So the Ferris wheel The Ferris wheel's spinning capacity, the faster it spins, the more successful you are. Maybe it's the more money you're making, or the more clients you have, or the more successful you are in whatever it is. But the only way to get that Ferris wheel to go is to focus your energy and your attention in one direction. So you would start by pushing really slowly. You're only one person, but this Ferris wheel is monstrous. But you can just like think about it, just kind of grabbing one of those cars and pulling it down, right? This is the visual representation of you focusing your attention after going after your clients. It's going to be hard at first. It's going to be a lot of work. You probably won't get there anywhere very fast, but you haven't lost your attention. You kept yourself focused within the 3 circles, right? Your hedgehog concept. If you continue to get up the next day and press out that a little bit in the same direction, it will go just a little bit faster. And with that, we'll continue to go faster and faster. As long as you don't go off and start focusing on different areas. The concept here is, and this is, I can say it's worked for me and it's worked for others, is that we'll continue to spin and spin and spin faster. So here's a good quote from Nikki Bowman. Nikki Bowman owns a successful consulting practice in Wisconsin. I think this quote came also out of Amy's chapter. I guess the key here, and this is the know what you should be doing piece we're talking about with Jim Collins concepts. You need to be unafraid to say no. Because when you say no, that gets you the opportunity to say yes in those areas that you want to frequently. And for the people that you want to work for. And that's the idea of staying focused on your hedgehog concept. Here's another quote I love. It's a great one for why we do what we do. It's from Alan Weiss. Just a couple ideas for you here. Well, our clients know what they want. Few knows what they need. The difference is the added value. Okay, so when Alan Weiss talks, he wrote this book. Oh, I know it's here. I'm not finding it right now. But he wrote a book about the million dollar entrepreneur, $1 million consulting. When he talks, he's actually talking about real value. When we talk value, he's talking money. Because in our world, you can be a contractor or an entrepreneur. A contractor is an evaluator, somebody who does what the client wants you to do. The best example of these are when we respond to RFPs, where the RFP outlines exactly what they want you to do. Maybe for me, it's like the local educational outreach organization associated with like a nonprofit or a museum or something. And they say, we really need somebody to do X, Y, and Z, and it's a long laundry list. That's not my kind of work, by the way. If they come to me knowing exactly what they want, I'm not going to work well with them. I'm an entrepreneur. I work with people to help them understand what they need. And by the way, back on those contractors, be careful with those. If you're going into this business, understand if you're reacting to a lot. I know people who've talked about a lot of success. I've had very, very little success with reacting to those types of RFPs. And that bears out also in our analysis from the survey in 2015. If you're reacting to those RFPs, you're going to put a lot of effort into writing these proposals, and they're not going to come back very successful very often. If anybody wants to share their experience in the chat, let me know, or go ahead and do so. The reason is, more times than not, they're reacting to their contracting requirements, and so they frequently already have an evaluator they want to work with. And they said, we've got this contract for $25,000 and we want to get it to you, but we can't do that until we shop it and we give other people an opportunity to submit proposals. This happened to me. I've had people tell me this when they wanted to give me the contract. Don't worry, because we'll make sure you get it. And sure enough, I get it, and other people do. And so be careful when you're reacting to these. But anyway, a contractor, back on this example, on those people are those folks like us who provide what a client wants. This is very specific. Now, back on Weiss's ideas here, the contractor and the entrepreneur, in many ways, you can see this as a value distance. At the point that you can turn to your clients and say, here's what you should be doing based upon my experience, and I've worked with lots of other folks like you, and what we should be thinking about. We are providing you with a value. You can go from your $250,000 a year contract with XYZ funding organization to a $2.5 million if you follow me. And this is the greatest thing about evaluation. If you learn one thing, know this: evaluation, good evaluation leads towards is the best marketing tool there is, because we're helping people understand how they can be better. And if they can get better at what they're doing, they can do more of what they're doing very well. So, and great evaluation, like if you're working on quasi-experimental approaches like I have, I've helped people very carefully understand what they're doing extremely well, and then they can communicate that in future proposals that they put out. And so I've seen it we had an Intel Math program. Intel Math is an educational program for elementary school teachers, best around 4th and 5th grade teachers who have low confidence in teaching math. But as these teachers have gone through this program, and we did a matched comparison for teachers who were not involved with it, we showed how it had a very strong impact. We turned those evaluation results to an opportunity to do a statewide program implementation. We went from 1 project to 2 projects to 4 projects to 25 projects. This was not really like about 6 or 7 years ago. That's the value distance, because I talked my client into doing, and this is something that the U.S. Department of Education wanted to do. They're like, we would love for you guys to be doing quasi-experimental. We know it's harder and it's going to cost more, but if you can do it, it's going to be great. So I did, and then we took those results and we turned that into an opportunity for my client to grow the program. That's the entrepreneurial perspective that we're talking about. All right, I've got handout number 2 here. What time is it? We're at 11:27 your time. So handout number 2 is right here. Here's the hedgehog concept. So I want to give everybody some time. We're going to do the marketing piece, and we're going to spend some time in questions and answers. And I'll ask you guys some questions, and I'll even answer questions that you don't ask me. How's that? Let's take about, so 11:28. Let's take until 11:35. How's that? So I'll give everybody 7 minutes to think through this, get up, use the bathroom, go grab a sandwich, whatever you need to do. I'm going to take a break, and then we'll come back at 11:35, and then we'll talk some more about this. As we're doing that, I'll find something about Ikigai for you guys, and I talk a little bit about how that is similar to the hedgehog concept. We'll come back to. So I'm going to turn off my, I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to turn off my video. Feel free, everybody, to ask questions in the chat. And Anna, please remind me when I don't see him. I appreciate it when she does that. And go from there. So back at 11:35. Okay, welcome back, everybody. And I saw there was some very specific questions. I'll try and hit those. I'm going to tell you this. Aaron has some great questions. The answer to these are it depends. A lot of it depends, and I'm going to try and be very as specific as I possibly can with Aaron. But you're going to find that everybody has a little bit of a different scenario on where to find grants, how you go about doing it. What you're going to find, though, is a lot of it has to do with just personal connections. And I'm actually going to spend a little bit of time talking about the networking aspect of marketing in just a little bit. The big picture on all of that is most of our projects come from familiar sources, because you're not selling your services, you're selling your experience with working with a person. They want to buy their involvement with you, right? So once I have a lot of great positive relationships with clients, and I know that that's the most likely opportunity for me to have a future job, not to find somebody random on the internet. So I don't spend a lot of time in social media. I don't spend a lot of time on my Facebook, on my LinkedIn. The time that I spend there is basically just maintenance. Because the majority of my opportunities for new things are knowing where the next grant is going to come from, when the next grant proposals are due, how to connect clients together. It's all those social pieces. So I could go on all day about some of my specifics, but they're not necessarily going to be relevant for everybody in the room. Ikigai. This is totally off the cuff. This isn't part of the presentation. It's just something I'm excited about right now. Totally different perspective. I gave the link in the chat box. And this is a way of personally understanding who you are. It's about self-fulfillment. It's about loving yourself, but it also has everything to do with what we're talking about with starting up your own consulting practices. Because if you're not doing these things, you're not going to be happy. And I love this because it adds this third piece on here of what the world needs, right? What do you love? What are you good at? See, it's like, in fact, I bet Jim Collins ripped this off. Who knows? Where's the money, right? But what does the world need? Now, I'd be willing to argue that 3 and 4 oftentimes overlap, and so I get it. But it's nice to think about it as a fourth piece. I think I'm going to put together a little 15-minute lecture on this because I love this idea so much. I've thought about writing a book, just kind of dedicating each of these, like a chapter to each of these 4 sections and how they overlap with one another. All right, back on the, just don't say that, handout. Let's throw out another poll question. Actually, this is technically poll question number 3 of the day, right? Where's your niche? How do you guys feel about thinking about this sort of thing? No clue. My work is out of my control. I do whatever falls in my lap, right? I know exactly what I want to do. I understand the overlap of those 3 circles of passion, skills, and money, right? Okay, I'm gonna keep this on target. We've got about 20 minutes in our session today. I'm gonna end polling in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As predicted, most of you guys are like at 4. I love it. Not everybody gets it. Know this, your niche is always evolving too. For as much as you're supposed to be focused on it like a hedgehog, know that you've always got different people on the Ferris wheel. I don't know. Got to figure out how to make that Ferris wheel example continue to work with this. But your niche is always evolving. I started with thinking I was going to do math and science partnership grants. Well, there's no math and science partnership grants anymore. And I was completely focused on that at first. And then the statewide evaluator decided she wanted all the work. And so she said they didn't need local evaluation anymore. And so I was out of an opportunity. So I knew I needed to diversify what I did. So I actually found myself now, I do a lot with the Department of Defense. Didn't expect that, completely evolved. But I'm still working with an educational evaluation in Southwestern Illinois. So I stuck with my basic idea, but you got to find out to what degree are you focusing your attention by broadening it out a little bit, but still staying within it. So you understand that these things change. It's really cool that a lot of you guys are understanding it. So let's stop sharing results. right, so, oh, Shannon gave some more information about GrantWatch. It'll be interesting for us to get into. I don't know GrantWatch. Maybe I should spend some time with this. Complete honesty here. I've been doing these presentations for years now, but it's just like every teacher says, they learn more than they give, right? So I'm always learning things. GrantWatch may be what I should be looking at. I found myself kind of connected to people, particularly grant writers, who come to me and ask me to help out. And so they're feeding me the grant opportunities. I don't go searching for them as frequently as I might have once. And I also have gotten to a point where with certain programs, I know the program officers. And so we're aware of these things. Now, I think everything's on the level, but there is additional communication and information that is provided to an existing evaluator within a grant program, because they already know you, and so you're going to hear things that other people won't hear. So it's another reason to just be actively involved. Okay, here we go. Put that down. All right, so we have a wholly different marketing session that we do when we do the conference, but I recently wrote a AEA 365 blog post. I'll find a link to that about networking karma. And this is my presentation on this. So this book, Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi, he had a co-writer, Tal Raz, who helped him out, but it was really Keith Ferrazzi's idea. He's this marketing genius or whatever. He started his own marketing firm based upon his experiences. But he realized something early on, that there's a lot of value in relationships. No, I don't think that's a surprise to you, but he really took a lot of time to define that. And he says, we talk about poverty, but poverty isn't just about the poverty of not having money, or it's really about that true poverty of not having access to information and opportunity that are happening. He realized this because he was a poor kid growing up, and he got to know a friend in his community who kind of effectively adopted him, and they were very rich. And he went to their country club together, and he started working at the country club as a now carrying people's golf clubs, what's that called? Anyway, but he started to see the relationships that happen amongst the golfers, and realized that's the true poverty, that he doesn't have access to those sorts of things. And when you live in a certain community, people just naturally, they're not trying to be, they're not, I mean, we talk about this as institutional racism now, but there is a natural order of activity that happens just among people in communities, and you take care of people in your communities. Now, if you live in a richer community or white community, that's the institutional racism we're talking about. Well, he's talking about this from the perspective of networking karma. I mean, I use the term networking karma. He uses the term social arbitrage. The general idea with social arbitrage and behind his book, Never Eat Alone, is that we need to find ourselves in these communities and make ourselves invaluable to them. That's what social arbitrage means, that we become indispensable to our connections. And that, honestly, it starts right in this very room right here that we're in. Find a way to reach out and be a part of your local affiliate, because in your local affiliate are people who have figured out how to do what you want to do. If you're brand new to this idea of evaluation consulting, and you want to build your skills around evaluation, give freely of yourself to COEN, Colorado Evaluation Network. There are people that would love for you to step up and do something. And in doing that, you get to meet other people, and you get to create connections, and then you become invaluable and indispensable to them, right? You strengthen those connections. The other big idea here is that you don't give favors and expect favors. It's not the I scratch your back, you scratch my back. You're not keeping score. You give freely of yourself, within reason, of course, but you don't have an expectation that somebody give back to you. And it's freeing when that happens, because oftentimes people feel indebted to you, even though you never intend for that. You give freely of yourself, and people will give back. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about karma. So I think most of us know what karma is. It's the spiritual principle of cause and effect. So you've got where when you put good into the world, good comes back to you naturally. Good intent and good deeds contribute to good karma and happier rebirths, while bad intent and bad deeds contribute to bad karma and bad rebirths, in the idea of multiple lives. On the other end of things, when we're talking about networking karma, we're talking about networking. And this is just classic social networking here, right? This is the stuff that we talk about in AEA. There are whole analyses to this, but the idea is you want to put yourself in the center of a group of people. And this is what you do in COEN. This is what we do with our TIGs. This is what we do in our communities of practice. By going to the meetings, by knowing people, not being that pushy person who says, here's my card, call me later. But just by being there and contributing, you get to know more people, and they ask you to more meetings, and they ask you to volunteer, and they ask you to set up this, and can you be a program chair like Anna does and Melanie does, right? By contributing to the community, you become centered, and then you develop your relationships. So we're talking about these nodes, and we're talking about these edges. The nodes are the people, and the edges are the lines between the people. As you develop your relationships, your edges grow thicker, and you have more of an opportunity to interact with one another. This is just classic social networking, right? You want to try and be this person in the center. We're not talking about scratching you scratch your back, and I scratch your back and you scratch my back. Sorry, I found this little picture is just too funny. If you scratch my back, I'll roll over so you can rub my belly. We're talking about being connected to people. We're really talking about Malcolm Gladwell. Here's a whole other book. If you haven't read this, this is another great one called The Tipping Point. He talks about being a connector, all right? Those are the people who connect people to each other. And in this tipping point, the whole idea here is that great ideas become fantastic ideas and get out into the world through three different types of people. Salespeople who can sell things, mavens who talk a lot about things and are connected to people, but then there's the connector who bring people together. We as evaluators are natural connectors, even if we don't feel like we're social beings, right? We as evaluators are connectors because, particularly independent evaluators, because we're the ones who are working with different clients and we're working with different kinds of projects. And the best evaluators and the most successful evaluators that I know of are the people who are able to take someone from over here that you're working with and someone from over here and say, let's come together and let's create an opportunity to work on this new project, which is something we just did last year, and it worked out with great success for us. We took our client in Chicago who has summer camps for girls, and our clients over here who were military-connected school districts, and we put them together to write a grant for $3 million, $1 million a year, to do summer camps, summer STEM camps for military-connected communities. And the National Defense Education Program, Department of Defense, they gave us the grant, and so now we have been able to expand our practice. But that was the idea. You're connecting people together. It's the whole idea of having a foot in many different worlds with the effect of bringing everyone together. So technically, we all belong to one giant social network. But we also belong to smaller, tighter social networks defined by our families, our friends, where we live, where we work, really where we went to school, our affiliates, what are our interests, by our TIGs. But by being a part of these groups, our evaluation groups, and with our client groups, and connecting them all together, that's how we create our opportunities. And really, that's the premise for how you connect. All right. Here's an example. Consider these different associations. iHeart Evaluation, because that's the Atlanta Area Evaluation Association. Here's just different ways that you can connect with people. And Rotary, may not be the first place you'd think to go, but there are a lot of small business people who figured out how to write contracts and how to do things there. American Evaluation Association. So here's some key ideas. I like to do a reference to Gittimer. He likes to do 5.5 steps of ideas. So find your people, give without expectations. When you need something, oh, this is a key point. Why we don't keep score. If you've developed relationships with people through this whole social networking idea, your marketing, when you reach out to somebody and ask for something, they're of course going to say yes. Now, there's not an expectation that they do it, but it's totally natural for you to ask your friends for help, for the people in your social network. How are you going to define friends? But the truth is, your clients are going to help you out if you need them. You say, hey, I'm trying to develop this new service line. I want to figure out how to do this thing. Who should I talk to? Well, they're going to help you out because you've been giving freely of yourself for years. You want to try and become that hub, that connector. Just know this. I know this is crazy, and this is kind of the big story on all of today, is that your skills, your opportunities are just going to come out of right field. It happens to me all the time because you've been investing in yourself for all these years. But also, it's important to, in many ways, follow your bliss. But your bliss is actually that idea of following and doing those things that you love to do. And that's a neat key guide as well, that you're paying attention to those 4 overlapping circles. You're following, you're doing those things that you enjoy. You need to pay attention. So here's some books on that. And I think all this presentation is out there for you guys to look at. All right, with that, let's ask some questions. I think that Erin had some things that she wanted to bring up. Let me see if I can answer any of those. There we go. All right, Erin wrote, we will also discuss are we going to discuss how to land jobs? Is GrantWatch a good resource? What other tools do people use to look up RFPs and other consulting gigs? My RFPs, I use grants.gov, okay? So I'm doing a lot of federal grants. I work primarily in the National Science Foundation, Department of Education, and Department of Defense. So those are all federal. Other stuff that kind of come up, just come up because my clients ask me about it. They come out of random places. You just never know where that's going to happen. Your connection with your network will lead to clients. Doing a fantastic evaluation project for a client is its own marketing internal, because I guess everybody has a different calculation for this, but between 80 and 95% of your next newest jobs are going to come from your existing network of people. They're not going to come out of the blue. So understand everything you're doing for people is actually marketing towards the next project. When I start a new project that's 3 or 5 years long, I'm starting that with the intent of working with those people for the foreseeable future, 10, 15, 20 years, because this project is probably not going to be the only project I do with my clients. And they love that because they're thinking the long-term picture too. How to discuss and land jobs. I mean, at a certain point, you're discussing with your client what you should be doing. This is evaluation plan. Your evaluation plan and an evaluation proposal, effectively, to me, are the same thing. The only difference between a plan and a proposal is that at a certain point, you're saying, here's what I'm going to charge. And you can understand how to do that from those costs. You're going to think about your costs based upon your time, right? It's going to take you 5 days. And you charge $1,000 a day. It's going to cost $5,000. That's how you do it. And you just write that out. And I usually say in my contracts what kind of a billing schedule that we're going to be on. So I like to bill on the quarters every 3 months, where I'll bill on April 1st, July 1st, October 1st, and January 1st. It's just easier for me. Everybody has a different schedule. Here's an interesting thing too. I'll just point this out. I found I like to give a little summary of what I've done in my invoices, so that I can feel like I'm justified in asking for that money. That's a good practice, and I suggest you do it. But also understand that there's oftentimes a different billing person than there is your client contact. Your client contact cares about the materials that you're doing or whatever we're doing with the funding partner, with the funding officers and stuff like that. And then you have an accountant. The accountant says, bill me at this time so that I can, they care more about making sure you bill them so that they can get it. For me, they need to oftentimes get those bills in front of the school board. The school board needs to approve it on time, and then they can pay you. And then there's a cycle to it. So the accountants don't necessarily care about that. Just realize that, I used to think I needed to only bill based on the actual hours I worked. And that became very convoluted and difficult. And the accountants hated me for it. They're like, you're supposed to charge $5,000 a year, so charge $1,250 every quarter, period. I don't care how many hours you worked on it. So, all right, questions? I felt like somebody was raising their hand. Is there anything in the comments down here? All right, well, I'm going to keep. You guys haven't figured out I know how to fill up a room. These are the different chat topics that we covered just all the way through October 15th. And we've had more. We just had one last Thursday. We're going to have another one this Thursday for Patricia Steele. So you can see we've got a lot going on there. Here's some questions for you. Actually, we're right at 12 or 11:57. Maybe I'll pause. I'll let Anna jump in and Melanie jump in and say whatever you need to say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, Matt. This was extremely informative, and really appreciate the number of resources that you shared throughout the session. For everyone on the call, Matt, if you're comfortable, we will share some of those resources that you referenced in a follow-up email. So please feel free to look out for that. And we always want your feedback. So I'm going to paste in the chat box just a really brief feedback form. Love to hear your reactions to today's session. Also really looking for suggestions for upcoming professional development workshops or communities of practice. So that's the last question included on there. So if you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. But I think that just about does it. We do have 2 minutes, Matt, if you wanted to talk about these FAQs. Only last plug is our next community